Welcome to the top 5 life science technologies from Balluff. I look forward to going over a few of these examples, talk about the technology, and also have a little bit of hands-on. You can see we have a little bit of demonstration equipment we'll be able to go through and hopefully have some good interaction as we understand some of these technologies and what it can do for you. Microspot LEDs. LEDs are really the most important part of a sensing device. Often people think the photo receiver or the photodiode is the most important, but not so. For demanding applications such as life science and microfluidics, it's the light and how you use it and how you get it on the object that's the most important. So let's look at a traditional LED. That's what we see here. This LED has the dead spot right in the middle. That's where the pad is, and then there's a bond wire that connects it. If you look at the Balluff microspot, you can see the emission area has nothing in it. The bond wire comes in and lands outside of that. So it really helps with shadows, dead spots, reflections, things along those lines. We're also able to manage the beam angle much better because we're not forced to use certain sections of that emitted area. We put these in some pretty interesting packages. We make our own lenses. These lenses are molded through an automated process, very unique. And we put them into housings, so you can get these in certain housings from us, all types of shapes. And of course, we'll do customized housings. Now let's take a look at some of these beam patterns and see what it's about.
Okay, so here we have the beam pattern of a very typical photoelectric sensor, very common in the industry, a very decent sensor. Balluff makes these sensors as a lot of them do. Here you can see the traditional beam pattern. If we look in the middle here, you can see where the pad lands. There's a shadow spot here. Kind of hard to see in this picture. And you see the line that's cast here. That's from the bond wire coming across. You see a large halo, very beam that's not very consistent throughout its pattern. Now let's bring in one of our Microspot LEDs. Here you can see this one is very sharp. When you're in the beam, the light is very consistent, unlike what you would see over with a standard traditional LED. So this is a good example of what a Microspot beam pattern would look like. It's a very small sensor. If we can bring it in, you can kind of see exactly how small this sensor is here that we're showing with the Microspot beam.
So detection and evaluation of aqueous media is very important in the life science area. This is done usually on some sort of water-based or it's being mixed down type of media. And so what we do here at Balluff is we use what we call a short-range infrared. It's much higher. So you can see in this chart, if we look at this a little closer, you can see your typical infrared sensing is done on 880 nanometers. What we do is we move it up, not really that much, to 1480, but you can see the vast difference in the coefficients that we get out of this. So much more sensing opportunity with this type of scenario. And so what we're able to do is put them in some very miniaturized housings, so we can see certain microfluidics level in certain vials and pipettes and other areas where we can really gain control over the media and detect what's there and when it's there in that way. So let's take a look at that.
Okay, here's a little demo showing the absorption technology. Here we have one of our amplifiers. You can see it showing its power readout right now. So what we'll do is we'll pass a vial of water through this. Watch as it moves through, watch that readout. You see it instantly goes down as soon as it sees the edge, and as it gets in the middle, absorption takes over and really keeps that number down close to zero, even as it pulls out. So you can see as all the way through the path, really not much variation in that signal level. By contrast, we'll show you some oil. Oil has a very low absorption rating. You see as I start to move the vial in, some refraction will occur and it will go down. As I move into the middle of the vial, the beam actually shoots straight through it. You see it actually gets higher. So some focusing going on as it's going through the oil. It's actually increasing the power rating.
Opal detection. This is very important in the life science area. Being able to see if bubbles are being pulled through your tubes or whatnot. And what we're going to use here is an optical technology using either absorption or refraction. And so then we're able to pick up multiple types of bubbles. So we'll be able to pick up macro bubbles. That's this example here. Macro bubble means it just touches wall to wall of a tube. If we're talking micro bubbles, that's what we would see here. These are bubbles that do not touch wall to wall. They can be much trickier to pick up as opposed to a macro bubble. And so that's why this optical technology that we have far superior to something such as ultrasonic. Refraction and absorption, you might remember this from schooling or whatnot, where you can see light moving through, it bends a little. Here, in this case, when there's nothing in it's empty, it bends a little, but then bends right back so the emitter can detect it. When there is a media that has a high refraction curve, as it enters it, it does an extreme bend on it, so then we will not see it. Absorption, kind of a little bit different, where we introduce light through the tube. When it hits a media that absorbs, obviously, pretty clear cut, it absorbs, and now we're able to detect it on the other side. When it's empty, now you get full power to the receiver. And so when bubbles pass through here, we'll be able to detect those differentiations. These are the kind of different housings that we have. For some of the micro bubbles, you can see here in this housing, we use actually 2 emitters and 4 receivers, just so we make sure we catch all these small micro bubbles. For the macro bubbles, we'll use a standard C slot and be able to do it that way. But this is some interesting technology. This micro bubble is very unique in the industry using refraction technology. It's very unique. So let's take a look and see how that works.
Okay, so here's an example of the refraction I was talking about. Here you see a laser. I'm just using a laser as an example so we can really see it. As I move this to the right, it's going to start hitting this glass of pure water. You can see there's a sharp specular reflection as soon as it touches the glass. But then as I move right, it moves left. So I move right, it goes left. Typical, I mean, that's standard stuff there. So what I'm going to do now is park it right in the middle of the water. I'm going to simulate an air bubble. So we're going to move a glass tube in here. There's simply air in there, so it's simulating an air bubble. And you can see the dramatic shift in the refraction. As I move this just a few millimeters, I get a really wild swing with the refraction off that air bubble in there. And this is simulating what a micro bubble would look like. It's not going edge to edge. This is simply simulating some air that this beam would hit. You can see how much movement we get just with this simple example. So here we have an actual setup of the bubble detection. Here you can see we have a small syringe where I can push some air bubbles through. You can see here's the actual product itself. This is the bubble detector. You see as I move some bubbles through, see how these bubbles pass through it. I'm going to show you what that looks like on the amplifier. These amplifiers are nice because they show you what the actual power levels are. So we can see the difference. You want to see some strong differentiation. There's a bubble directly in front of it. Look at that, 890. Really a good indication when you see solid material in front down to like almost below 300. So it's a really good swing between bubbles and no bubbles with this type of detection. Just swinging some through, you get an idea how those look. So very, very reliable way of detecting bubbles and micro bubbles.
Liquid level detection, that's a big part in life sciences, of course. So what we have is we have a hybrid technology for detecting very difficult media like blood, which is highly conductive. We have this technology. We also call it smart level, if you've heard that term. That's the term for this hybrid technology. So some of the challenges, especially with detecting blood, there's a high concentration of iron in it that can disrupt other sensors, and the viscous, the property of blood is pretty strong. You can actually see it. This illustration does a good job. You can actually see this lighter area up here. That's actually where the blood has been. So the blood level here in this example moves between these 2 areas. And so you can see how much the filming is there, how it stays on the side of these tanks. It's very common for those working in this industry. You know, this is typically how it does work. And standard sensors can certainly detect the blood. The problem is they cannot not detect it, if that makes sense. So this film they would also detect as well. So it would not see any of this change here. So this is a very good technology for that. Other challenges that this is good for is when you're mixing properties, sometimes you'll mix down blood or remove components of it, something like that. There's also times when you have foaming or other conductive media. This hybrid technology is very good in that area as well. So let's talk about it. It's somewhat unique, this hybrid technology. So what we're able to do here is use a much higher frequency. So we use 6.5 megahertz. This is much higher than a standard capacitive sensor. It allows for a AC path to ground, and I'll talk about that, and I'll show you an example of that as well. So what happens is the AC ground will only compensate for the not dampened signal. So in this case, if you see the media here is at this level, and there's some buildup here, the conductivity of this is the measured against what the conductivity is of the external AC ground potential. So here it will not dampen the signal. So you see here in this chart, it is not dampened. That's the AC signal that all capacitive sensors will generate. As the level comes up, now capacitance takes over more than the conductance, and it's able to dampen that signal, and then you'll get your signal that you're looking at, the signal that you're looking for. So very good technology, very compensating for buildup and media that sticks to the side of your vessel or reservoir or whatever that happens to be in. So let's take a look at how that works.
Okay, here we see two examples of capacitive sensors looking at some media in the test tube. You can see both of these capacitive sensors are active right now. The green LED is kind of hard to see, but it's on the right. The sensor I'm pointing to is our smart level sensor. So this is one with a conductance principle in it as well. You can actually see we have a ground strap here for the AC signal to come back. This is our standard capacitive sensor, a lot like any capacitive sensor on the market today. So it's certainly able to see that liquid really easy. This is not the tricky part here. Any sensor can see this liquid like it is, but what we'll do now is we'll drain some of this liquid and we'll see what happens. So here we can see a lot of the liquid still on the tube. On the left, you can see how the sensor is still active. It's still seeing this stream of media back there. It hasn't dripped down yet. And here the stream of media is not being detected by our smart level sensor. You can see the amber LED is off. That is the output. So it is not sensing that. So that is a good example of how the smart level is able to ignore those types of media.
So vision is often a big part of any medical device or even in the lab automation side. What Balluff is able to do is offer a building block type system for you. So often when we deal with our medical device accounts, they have some vision staff, they have some people very skilled at this, and they really know what they want. So if you know what you want, we have a building block approach where you simply pick your lens, pick your mounting system, any kind of filters that you may need. And of course, the important part is the actual camera. If the camera needs a buffer or some other electronics with it, we're able to build those components up specifically for you. Any kind of connection technology, we're able to give that to you. Any interface method, whether it's USB 2 or USB 3 or anything else, Giga E or any of those high-tech connection technologies, we're able to put this together for you. So let me show you quick what some of those things look like.
Okay, here we have some of those camera building blocks. You can see here's a very basic one. It's got the imager, only one circuit board, so that's really just capturing images. Here's a bit larger imaging sensor. See, it has a secondary board and a thermal plate on the back as well, pull heat out, processing or buffering of some sort. Here's one built up with a lens holder. So you can see it's got two boards on it. It's got the lens holder on it. Some connection technologies depending on how you want to interface, what type of system you want to interface, USB 3 or Giga E, flex track to get it where you want it in your system. So all this is available as building blocks.
So I said there were top 5 technologies, but I'm going to throw a freebie in for you. This is really hot right now, so I thought I'd get it in there as RFID for anti-counterfeiting and brand protection. RFID has been around a long time. Balluff has done this for 30 years or so. So we offer systems that will interface directly into your controller. So really the important part here, of course, is the read-write head. many different ways that this can get into your control system. And of course, the tag. The tag we'll talk about. That's the obviously what goes on your product. So tag technologies vary based on different applications. So we have everything from low frequency tags, which are very tolerant for wet environments and other tricky areas. And we also have high frequency tags. This is a worldwide standard, very popular. We have the most tag options here, and we have encrypted tags available. So encrypted tags, they're available on the open market. You're able to encrypt your data, so you can't do counterfeiting is really the great use for something like that. And then we also have the ultra high frequency or UHF. This is also a worldwide standard. Gives you long range. You can read multiple tags. Got some really low cost paper options here. So you really have some low cost ways to get that going. So where do we see this used most in the life sciences? Really in the lab automation side and the medical device. If we look at lab automation, we often see these reagent tanks, and you can see the reagent tanks will have these RFID chips on them. Oftentimes they can be encrypted, so nobody can copy them. So this would ensure you have the proper reagents and that nobody else is copying it, can't be reused. It gives you full traceability in that regard. For the medical device side, you can see here we have that tank again. If that tank was to be used maybe only one time, then that RFID tag is very important there to ensure people aren't cleaning it or attempting to reuse it, something like that. RFID can protect against that. It also gives you counterfeit protection and again, full traceability. So Balluff has a wide area of tags for this area and read-write heads for all your applications. And if you're getting into the encrypted side of things, we can talk about that as well. So that was a quick glimpse at our top 5 life science technologies. I threw a bonus in there as well. Again, my name is Tom Rosenberg. I'm the Life Science Industry Account Manager. You can see my email address there. I'll be sticking around for a bit, answering any questions. If I'm not here during the time that you're asking, I certainly will respond. Try the email or any other methods to get a hold of me. If there's technologies that weren't introduced here, sensing related or RFID tracing or vision related, please let me know. And we will get with you and talk about your applications. Thank you.